And I wanted to mention this story because I had never heard it before, even though he's told it before, but this was my first time hearing it this week. Hornswoggle was on the New Day's Feel the Power podcast. Right, all this crying about the New Day not being together anymore. They still have a podcast together. That ain't going away. And they had Hornswoggle on the show, and he shared a story about the big anonymous Raw general manager reveal in 2012. The anonymous GM was this long, drawn-out, terrible storyline where every week we would hear that stupid message tone. Yeah, just like that. And Michael Cole would climb up to the podium to read an email from the anonymous Raw general manager. The show was being booked by a laptop for an entire year. Over a year. This storyline dragged on until one day, it just disappeared. It vanished. Because they never had any plan for the payoff. So they just let the whole angle fizzle out. And then the following year, in 2012, the anonymous GM returned for one night only. And Horny was the one to be revealed as the GM. Okay, making two big storylines that went over like a lead balloon with their big reveal. The Vince McMahon bastard son storyline and the Raw GM storyline. Kofi Kingston brought up the story, though, of Nick from New Jersey. And this was in reference to the original plan for the Hornswoggle reveal. Hornswoggle was going to be this mob boss style character with, I guess, a Napoleon complex named Nick. He was going to be Nick from New Jersey with this thick New Jersey accent, throwing his weight around, running Monday Night Raw. He gets a call from one of the writers asking him, "Hey, how's your Jersey accent?" And he tells them, "I can't do accents." And they say, "Well, you better start." He goes, "You're going to be Nick from New Jersey." And the whole story is you pull the wool over all the kids' eyes and all their parents' eyes. You fooled them all. Now you're going to be the heel GM. Just, and the way Kofi, you gotta watch and listen to the way Kofi tells this, because the clip is up on like the WWE YouTube channel. That was the whole, I guess, story behind it, is how he duped everybody. You know, all you stupid parents and all you stupid kids buying all my merch. You're buying all my merch. Now keep in mind, at the time, Hornswoggle did not speak. He did not say full words. He grunted, but he never spoke. He never cut promos. He didn't do interviews. He never said a word. And so he says, "Well, okay, let me get this straight." He's trying to process this in his head as this writer is telling him this. And he says, "Let me get this straight. Now all of a sudden I can talk and I'm a heel and I'm somehow from New Jersey." And the writer says, "Yeah." And he goes, "And this makes sense?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, okay, I guess I'm going to learn a Jersey accent." And he says the only thing he could think of for a Jersey accent was the baby in the movie Roger Rabbit. He just kept watching that scene over and over and over again. That was his frame of reference for New Jersey. Now, you see, I would have thought that Tony Soprano and not Baby Herman from Who Framed Roger Rabbit would have been a better frame of reference, or pop culture-wise. But all he could think of was Baby Herman from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So the day of the show, he's in rehearsal. He's in the ring, right? The arena's empty. You got some wrestlers sitting around. Kofi Kingston and Kurt Hawkins are two of his best friends. They're sitting up in the stands. They can hear everything because Horny is mic'd up in the ring. And they are laughing their asses off. He is just so bad. He is so bland and so vanilla. He can't do it. He just can't do it. He cannot nail that accent if his life depended on it. And so finally, they cut his mic and they just give up because he is so awful. So what was supposed to be this lengthy heel run on TV for him as the general manager, I guess, turned out to be a one-night reveal where he ended up biting Santino Marella on the ass and then running away. But just imagine that. We almost got Nick from New Jersey. Smoking cigars, living in a luxury apartment in New Jersey. I don't know how that would have gone over, but I feel like it would have been good for his career. But it just didn't work out. Filming for Dark Side of the Ring Season 3 on Vice TV is already underway. I wasn't sure when they were going to begin filming. They were greenlit for a new season, and then COVID hit. And, part of what they do is they travel around and they go to people's homes and they interview them. So I didn't know if production was on pause. I kind of assumed that it was. But apparently it is underway. I was a big fan of the first 2 seasons. PW Insider has confirmed that interviews were conducted with the family of Grizzly Smith for an episode on Grizzly and his children, that being Jake the Snake Roberts, Sam Houston, and Rockin' Robin. I think that episode is going to reinforce the whole dark part of Dark Side of the Ring. The things that Grizzly Smith, the stories about him and the things that he is accused of, not only by other people, but by his own kids, by Jake. Jake's talked about this in shoot interviews and stuff. And then just Jake's entire life. I mean, my God. I don't know if I'm ready for that. But I hadn't even thought of that when I was thinking about potential ideas for new, episode topics. It doesn't get much more dark than that, short of talking about murder and stuff like that. That's going to be a dark one. Eric Bischoff on his 83 Weeks podcast said that he has already filmed interviews for episodes on Brian Pillman and the WCW Collision in Korea event in 1995. Nothing really dark happened there. I think it's more of what could have happened. Ric Flair has said that it was a very intimidating experience from the moment he stepped off the plane in North Korea. They wanted him at the very end. They wanted him to make a public statement before they let them all go home about how much they enjoyed, how much he enjoyed his time there and how he saw that North Korea could dominate the United States if it wanted to. So I don't know how he finagled his way out of that one. He did not want to say it. He somehow managed to get out of saying it. Scott Norton, the story about Scott Norton, who was on that same tour, phoning home. I think he phoned his wife, and I don't know what he was telling her. He was saying something, I guess, that they perceived to be negative about the country. As soon as he started talking about that stuff, the phone line went dead. So obviously they were listening in on their calls. They were probably being watched at all times. I'm sure they were. I'm sure they had eyes on these guys, eyes and ears. They probably had their rooms bugged. The thing I love about the event there, it wasn't just wrestling. They were invited to be part of this 2-day sports festival. So it really wasn't like a wrestling show. Wrestling was just part of this larger event that had been organized. I think it was in Pyongyang, and Muhammad Ali was there. So, there were a few dignitaries there. But what I love is the reported attendance for the 2 days was said to be something like 350,000 people. They had like 150,000 fans in the stadium on day 1, and they had like 190,000 the next day. And what must this stadium look like, by the way, to fit 190,000 people? I would love to see it. Now, who knows how accurate those numbers even are? I mean, those are probably coming from the North Korean government, so take them for what they're worth. But I guess, look, you know what? I guess I can believe it when tickets are free, and everyone apparently was required by the government to attend. What are you going to say? No? I have a doctor's appointment. I can't make it. So, I mean, if everyone is coerced into going, then I guess you can fit 190,000 people into one place. But Meltzer reported that the actual attendance for each night was like 150,000 and 160,000 or something like that. And I'm like, even in North Korea, he somehow gets, or he claims to get, the more accurate attendance figures. We all know the WrestleMania 3 story, right? 93,000. Even Meltzer, for years in his newsletter, reported the number. He took it at face value. He said they had 93,000. And then sometime in the early 90s, I guess he heard from Zane Breslov, right? Good friend of his, who was one of the promoters of WrestleMania 3, who worked for WWE. And tipped him off that was not the accurate number and showed him something, faxed him something. That's where the whole story changed to 78,000. So that's a famous story. But just the idea that Meltzer would be like, Well, I have the actual attendance here for the North Korean shows. I love it. I love it. Meltzer says that they are also working on an episode for the Dynamite Kid. So that would be 4 episodes that we know about so far from the new season. Grizzly Smith, Dynamite Kid, Brian Pillman, and Collision in Korea. We don't know what the others are going to be or how many episodes. I assume 8, but we don't know how many episodes. It could be 8, there could be 10. I would like to see episodes on those early 90s WWE sex scandals. That's just tailor-made for TV. Vince McMahon's steroid trial. I mean, my God. Obviously, you're not going to get Vince McMahon or anyone from WWE to talk, but you can get plenty of people, I'm sure, to go on the record and talk. Reporters who covered the trial. Some of the wrestlers who aren't contracted to WWE. That could be an interesting one. An episode on Chyna and her life. How she was discovered, her run in WWE, her life, in later years. That could make for an interesting episode. And maybe it's too soon for one, but if there's a season 4, they could probably do one on Alberto Del Rio. Lots of material available for that one. They could even get Ricardo Rodriguez to narrate it. Really make it authentic.